It's so good. I just have to let the world know. So, June 17th, the doctors gave my grandmother 3 hours to live. And with them giving my grandmother 3 hours to live, that put me in an extremely dark place. And when I tell you a dark place is a real place, it really is because I was there. And I'm ashamed of the wicked thoughts that I allowed to come over my soul and my mind and my spirit at that time. But see, I wasn't prepared for my grandmother only having 3 hours to live. My grandmother got sick Christmas. I left my job and did everything in my power to nurse my grandmother. I did things that I never imagined I would even be able to do. But my grandmother would go to the hospital and always come home. And that's what I was expecting, my grandmother to get ready to come home. But the doctors gave my grandmother 3 hours to live, so I was not ready for that. I was totally doubting God. I mean, I was at the point where I almost didn't even believe in God. I questioned God. I just told God how unfair this was. I was in a completely dark place filled with wicked, evil thoughts with a horrible spirit. And so let me go ahead and fast forward. June 19th, about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 in the morning, during those hours. At this point, my grandmother was only taking 5 to 6 breaths a minute, which was putting me in even more of a dark place. And at this point, my life was dependent on my grandmother's life. With every breath she took, was basically every breath I took. And I had so many unanswered questions because I never spoke death to my grandmother. I only spoke life to my grandmother. I never let my grandmother know that the doctors had only given her 3 hours to live a couple days ago. But I needed questions answered. And with her only taking 5 breaths a minute, I felt I would never get my questions answered, or get to hear her speak again or anything, which was putting me deeper and deeper in a dark place. And I couldn't understand myself at this point, the ways I was feeling. I couldn't understand God. I couldn't understand the situation. I was lost completely. And so time went on. And then the sun came up. And when I tell you the sun shined so bright through my grandmother's hospital window room, I mean, almost brighter than I'd ever seen before. And I looked up at my grandmother, and her eyes were open, like just as bright as the sun. And I said, Grandma, what are you doing? What you doing, Grandma? And she let me know. She said, Oh Lord, my mother. She let me know she saw her mother. And my grandmother was partially blind in her right eye. But when I tell you that right eye was open just as bright as that left eye, she wasn't blind in her right eye no more. And I just could not believe what I was seeing and hearing. I decided to take advantage of this moment and ask some questions. So I'm like, Grandma, are you sad? And she was so weak, but she said, Sad? Nah, baby. And that was the most beautiful experience I've ever had. That was the best thing I'd ever witnessed in my life. God allowed me to witness my grandmother's transition. God woke my grandmother up. When the doctors, when the family, when we all thought it was the end, when I thought I'd never hear my grandmother's voice again, when my grandmother was only taking 5 breaths a minute, when I was going into a darker place than I'd ever been in, and when my life was dependent on my grandmother's 5 little breaths a minute, God woke my grandmother up and allowed her to answer the questions that my heart desired. God brought me out of that storm. I've always loved God. I've always prayed to God. I've always felt like I've had a relationship with God, but it wasn't until that day, June 19th, that I saw God for myself. God showed me himself through my grandmother. So I'm asking my grandmother questions. And I said, Grandma, are you in any pain? Are you hurting? Do you need any medicine? And she told me no. This is the first time she's told me no, she don't have no pain in months. It's like my grandmother touched the hem of his garment. She was healed already. She wasn't blind in her right eye. She didn't have no more pain. She woke up. She gave me life. She smiled. She gave me such a peaceful smile. I was asking her questions. I let her know I had on her rings. I asked her if that was okay. She laughed. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. God is so good. God is so real. God is so merciful. I doubted him. I lost all faith in him. And God blessed me with what my heart desired anyway. He brought me out of the storm anyway. And God is so good, and I'm forever grateful, and I'm so humbled, and I just want the world to know that God is real. I know some of us may doubt, because I know we may doubt where our loved ones go, or where we might go, or what happens after we die. But let me tell you, this body is just an earthly shell. That's it. We use this body to walk this earth, but who we are, our souls, our spirits, lives on. And I don't know about nobody else, but I know my grandmother went to heaven. And she's with God, and she's with her mother, and she's with my mother. And God woke her up and allowed her to let me know that. And it's because of that moment that I'm here and able to speak and have joy and peace down in my soul today. God saved me, and I need the world to know God is real. He is so real and so good. Thank you, Jesus.